Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, for another edition of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. Obviously, I'm Daniel Berger, and today we have the pleasure of having as our guest Jarred Talmadge. Jarred's been involved in sales and marketing for over 30 years. Don't look like his young age fool you. He's a seasoned veteran in the sales and marketing business. Um, he is the author of a best-selling book, the author of the LinkedIn Real Estate Agent. He called it the best business book of 2024. So they can't say that about a lot of books because the best is there's one best. So I think that's kind of incredible. Jarred's been known as the LinkedIn guy.
Yes.
And I think his biggest mantra from just reading a little bit about him is about LinkedIn and about what he's about is connecting is only really the starting point and it's really not the destination. So with that, we're gonna open it up and thank you very much, Jarred, and welcome to this week's podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, so LinkedIn is, it's there. What's interesting is it. I can tell that it's first of all it has legs, right? It's been around for a while. It doesn't
Right.
seem like it's going away. Um, and it is a way now that so I have a child who's 25 and 21, and as they're getting into the workforce, they're even using it, right? So there's not many things that like people our age and our kids want to use, and it's also a great tool because we're able to help our children network for people that in industries that they're interested in, and their friends can do the same for us. So it kind of really opens up communication and connecting much more than it would have been back in the old day. It would have been a lot more who you know and more clandestine, and now it's much more in the open for the starting point of connecting. So with that, that's a mouthful. So I understand that, and so welcome, Jarred. Thank you very much for coming on, and we're ready to learn from you.
Okay. Yeah, here's the thing. Honestly, Daniel, about LinkedIn is, yeah, it's been around for t almost 20 years or a little more than 20 years now. But it didn't start as what it is now. It started originally as a competitor to Monster. What it's become, though, is your living embodiment of your digital profile online. And that's what kind of intrigued me about how LinkedIn works for business and why I started talking to people about how LinkedIn can build your business because it really is what we knew as kids as the 6 degrees of separation or the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, whatever, how depending on how old you are. But you're always three people away from anybody you ever want to know on LinkedIn. And when you're dealing with that in a situation of business, consider this. It's the probably the biggest, most comprehensive business database the world has ever seen. There's 100 million users just in the United States. There's another 200 million users around the world. And when you kind of look at that and you think about that from, for example, a real estate perspective, then you start to realize that the truth is every client you'll ever need for the rest of your life is in one place at one time. And if you can learn how to leverage that, you can actually build it into something fantastic for your sales business.
Agreed. I mean, 20 years is a lot in the world of technology, right? So, MySpace didn't make it, right? So, but again, I think so the idea of LinkedIn is really it's a give and take, right? It's really just a portal of sharing information. Um,
Yes.
a lot of my business is connecting. Um, Clients come, they need a lawyer, they need a house inspector, they need this, they need that, they need a title person, they need insurance. But then it turns into like, oh, my sink leak. Do you have a plumber? So it's always about connecting. So, and that's what I would, you're the LinkedIn guy. I'm kind of like a little bit the connector, but um, it's hard to connect people because I feel like if I'm giving someone's name out and they disappoint, and if you're disappointing one of my connections, you're done. Maybe you get
Right.
two strikes, you're out. But um, I expect my people to reply to messages and to follow up and to take care of the people because that's kind of my that's who I am, right? That's my branding is my name, right? And
Right.
connectivity. So LinkedIn, I think I clearly don't use it properly. Um, but I do have over 5,000 connections. So at least you'll give me I might get an A- for that, but at least over the 20 something years I've viewed it as something that's important and I also think it's a give and take, right? So it's not just how can I use it? Because I actually don't pay for the premium service anymore. Because like in real estate, I'm not looking for a job and whatever. Um, but but I'm there because I do want people who want me to help them find something, or if they have a connection, I don't mind being there. Um, that's right. So that's that. I clearly see value in that.
Well, here's the thing that I think a lot of agents don't really get about LinkedIn, which is um, this is LinkedIn is that way that you can literally use everything I talk about right here, by the way, and everything I talk about in the book is the free version. So the thing about this is there's ways to keep in touch with your clients. There's ways to be in front of them regularly. And then there are ways that you can actually build your business that LinkedIn will actually help you build more business, help you find more clients. And so for somebody in your position where you're talking about, hey, I have 5,000 connections. The question I have for you is how often do you actually get to talk to all 5,000 of those people? Because as a real estate agent, your entire business is based on who you know. It's based on who you talk to. And you could see a significant jump in your business simply by saying, you know what, I'm going to put something out here weekly to talk to my clients because people are increasingly living online. And in this day and age, when you're talking about, somebody's going to go out on Amazon and they're going to buy a toothbrush, and a toothbrush is $3, if that. But they're going to read the reviews and they're going to check out what people say about this, and they're going to make a decision entirely independent of whatever marketing the company does. But from a real estate perspective, that's where LinkedIn really can be powerful for you because you actually control what is being said about you. And so when somebody goes out and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to Google you. They want to know what's going on with you. And LinkedIn has an agreement with Microsoft so that when they Google your name, chances are one of the top three things that'll come back is your name is going to come back with your LinkedIn profile. Now, if the client directly goes from Google to that LinkedIn profile, what are they saying about you? What are you saying about yourself? And that's really where LinkedIn has the power to change your availability to just create more business because it becomes a 24/7 advertisement for your business. The thing is, most people just neglect it because they say, oh, well, I don't really understand it, therefore it must not work. Um, I will tell you this, the last year, I started, well, back in April is when I really started pushing LinkedIn. So it hasn't even been a year, and I've already reached 80,000 people. And you show me what other platform is going to actually encourage you to reach that many people across that swath of an area and do it for no cost. I mean, that's really where the power of LinkedIn lies.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a profile. I don't think I promote enough of the business I do, but really me promoting a sale. So while there's some level of getting out in front of people, and then because when people are ready, they see because I have had business probably more from Facebook and Instagram where people are like, oh my God, Danny's doing this and Danny's doing that. I'm going to call Danny for that. But LinkedIn, I think, is also more about the community. So trying to get conversations started or adding to other conversations where I have some expertise. that's probably really the way that you get better ratings and better on LinkedIn, where people can go back and read that. So it's certainly not bad. Anytime that any of those 5,000 people can see that I'm doing something that makes sense, it's fine. But it is probably better to be more involved in the LinkedIn community as a contributor. Is that fair to say that?
Yeah, and what we're not talking about hours upon hours upon hours, but here's the fundamental difference that you need to understand between, say, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. Facebook and Instagram are designed to do one thing, which is to keep you on their platform and keep you scrolling, keep you looking, because the more you look, the more money they make from the ads. That's just basic social media 101. LinkedIn is different because LinkedIn's job is to get you connect to other people, and they want you to have those business conversations. They want you to have those chats. They want you to meet different people. And so when I tell people, hey, if you haven't done this, try LinkedIn. What I'm talking about is just get on LinkedIn, try making a post 3 times a week, see what happens. You'll notice that your connections will start going up, your response will start going up, and then as you figure that out, then you realize that one of the greatest things that LinkedIn will do is it allows you to have your own platform to talk about whatever it is that you want. And so I tell people, start by talking about what you know, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, you know the questions your clients are always going to ask you no matter what you do, whether it's somebody who's been with you and worked with you before or somebody who's never met you. Chances are there is a question, or there are multiple questions that they have that they're going to want to know. If you start answering those questions, and you start answering those questions before the client even asks those questions, now you're establishing your authority on LinkedIn. You're establishing your authority in what you do, and you're saying to the client, look, I'm here for you, but I'm going to put this information out there anyway. And that really becomes a lead magnet to bring people back to you. And ultimately, it keeps you top of mind. And for top of mind, there's nothing easier than just posting something and say, I know this about real estate. Let me tell you about this. Or I had a problem. My client had this problem. This is how we solved the problem. And you put it out there. And when you do that, now all of a sudden you're becoming that person that's going to give answers before you even step into the point of asking for the business. And when you do that, it makes people feel better about you, and as a result, you drive more business to your own business, or to whichever business you're talking about. It'll drive business that way because, simply put, the world needs experts, and most of us don't. Um, how should we say it? Most of us make ourselves commodities, in that we say, oh, I'm just like every other agent out there. Well, I guarantee you, if you're on a podcast, if you're doing something like this, you're not like every other agent out there, because most of them aren't doing something like this, which means that you do have something to say, which means that LinkedIn is a perfect platform for you, because that puts out information and says, hey, I'm the expert in the room. And when you go to a blank LinkedIn page and somebody says, oh, it's just my name and my information, and there's nothing else there, that's a clear sign that you're not putting that out there. But if you go back and you say, oh, look, this is a very robust profile, and it tells you what I do for buyers, what I do for sellers, what I do for first-time home buyers, that kind of thing, all of a sudden now you become the expert in the room. And considering that you're competing against every other agent in the city, you want to be able to stand out, and LinkedIn really gives you that opportunity to do so.
I do think that it's an added, it just gives you another avenue to do that, because a client reached out to me this week, and he and his wife are correction officers, and they actually were kind of swindled in a home. They bought land, the house is being built, it's not finished yet, and they need help. So I said, well, how did you get me? They said, I Googled top real estate agents in Westchester County, and you were on a list of top 10. I'm like, oh. And then he goes, and then we started digging in. I think he was looking more of Zillow and Google profiles, but it could have been LinkedIn too. And they're like, while we were a really bad judge of character building, with our builder, we think you're the guy. So, so what was, and that's not me asking for the business. That's just
Right.
me just being out there, communicating, having things. And so it's interesting. People are like, well, why are you doing a podcast? Specifically my family. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just trying to connect people. I'm trying to, so today I get to speak to Jarred, and we'll put something out there. And his family, my family may or may not look at it, but it's out there, right? So someone wants to go look at it. And so clearly I want you to put this on your LinkedIn. I gotta actually find out, are my things on the podcast on LinkedIn besides just the podcast? Because it would be a great, because this is really education and learning. I learn every week that I have someone on that we're talking about stuff. You know, um, it's not about me. It's about like, this is a crazy business. That's the whole point of the adventures of a real estate broker. Crazy things happen all the time. And so, I'm trying to memorialize some of those things. I'm actually working on a book as well. And so you know, it's not like it's more like it's out there and people who are bored can look at it or whatever, or younger people or people that want to learn can kind of have that. There's no expert. All I can say is that I'm only about 8 years in so far. I do a lot of business. It's all organic growth, right? I didn't, I started with nothing and I just started doing one deal, then two deals, then 10 deals, and 60 deals a year last year with a lot of business. Um, is I don't door knock, I don't make phone calls. It's word of mouth and it's past clients that are, refer me to people. So it's the same. Um, and then you still get, and LinkedIn is another great method to do that. So I have a few specific questions about LinkedIn for you, but like how
Okay.
how whether it's in the real estate world or where else, how does one build their business, using LinkedIn?
So one of the main things I tell people about LinkedIn is the first thing you do is if you're in a situation where you have at least 150 connections, which clearly you're already past that, there is something inside of LinkedIn that will allow you to communicate with all 5,000 of your connections. In this case, we're talking about yours, Daniel. We'll talk about all 5,000 connections, but then there's another thing on there. If you look at your LinkedIn profile, so there's always a number that says connections, and most of the time you just see 500 plus, but you can see your own connections and you get the actual number. The second one is next to that number, there's a little number that says followers. Followers are people that have stood up and said, I'm interested in what you do. We may not be friends, but I'm interested in what you do. And so the first thing I tell people is if you have 150 plus connections, go to on a standard desktop or a laptop, go in and you type it and you click where you're going to post, like normally do a Facebook post or whatever. You can do a LinkedIn post. But if you do that, up in the top, if you hit write article, it'll pop up and it does this whole thing. But in the top corner, it says manage. And if you click the manage button, it'll drop a drop down that says newsletter. And if you click the newsletter, it'll allow you to start a newsletter. Well, back in the day, you had to print the newsletter, then you had to mail it, and then you had to address it, and you hope that it got to somebody. Or then the digital age came along and we said, oh, you have to have an email system, and then you have to have this format, you have to do this. Well, LinkedIn took all that stuff, put it all into one thing, and now makes it free in LinkedIn. But here's the catch. So when you pop it up, it's just like writing an article on LinkedIn. It's going to ask you to put in a picture. It's in this case, if you start a newsletter, it's going to ask you how often do you want to publish, what's the name, what's the graphic, a bunch of different things. Once you do that, then it pops you into a screen that says you can write a newsletter. And what I tell people is write what you know. So start with a very basic premise. Start with write the headline, obviously. That's the first thing people are going to see. Then what you want to do is think of the article or the newsletter doesn't have to be very complicated. All it has to do is say, okay, let's try three parts. Okay, they have what's called the lead, which is basically the opening statement, and it just says this is what I'm going to talk about. Then you go into the second part, which is the body, and the body is this is what I'm talking about. And then the final part is the conclusion, which is basically this is what I talked about. And you could do that in as short as 3 paragraphs. But the thing that really gets people is then I always recommend a fourth section. And the fourth section is called About the Author. And what you do is you put this below the newsletter and you say about the author. And then the about the author section basically is an unadulterated 100% sales pitch for working with you. Why are you an expert? Why does it matter? Give me your name, your phone number, your email address. How do I contact you? How do I get anything, free information, whatever. Here's the thing. As soon as you publish that newsletter, Okay. And you can either go down and hit publish and it'll publish literally within the next 30 seconds, or you can hit the clock and the clock will say, when in the future, over the next 60 days, do you want to publish this newsletter? Well, what LinkedIn does really bad job of telling you is that as soon as you hit publish, LinkedIn is going to publish that newsletter, but they're going to send out an email to all of your all of your connections, and they're going to say, "Hey, you're friends with Daniel. This newsletter just went out. You should pay attention." But it also goes out to all of your followers as well. So you might have a few thousand followers on top of the 5,000 people that you're connected to. So now all of a sudden you're basically sending out a message to the 7,000 people that know you and say, hey, pay attention. Here's a newsletter that they're publishing. And LinkedIn will continue to do this every single time you publish. They will go out until they start, their algorithm will start building kind of a model of your ideal client that keeps subscribing to your newsletter. And then they will go out and find other people on LinkedIn who match that profile and will encourage those people to go to your newsletter. And so it comes down to this. You don't know where that newsletter is going to go. You don't know who's going to see it. You don't know who's going to find it. You don't know who's going to read it. But what's going to happen is all of a sudden you'll notice as you do this for a few weeks, you'll start getting a notice. You got 20 new subscribers, 30 new subscribers, 50 new subscribers, whatever it is. The more consistent you are, the more likely you are to get subscribers. But here's the thing. That little about the author section has gotten me TV interviews, radio interviews, podcasts, articles, interviews, all those things. And I didn't do anything for them. I didn't pay for it. I didn't send it. I didn't do anything. I just let LinkedIn do its thing. And then people out there found me and came back and said, oh, you do this. We'd like to talk. And so kind of like what we're doing now, you have the power to expand your business exponentially because you simply don't know where it's going to go. But if you keep putting that out there, the business will find you even though you're not actually actively doing anything to get it. But imagine you get a phone call from a client that says, hey, I read your article. I thought it was brilliant. I'm moving to your part of the world. I'd like to work with you. Now you've created a business that didn't know you were there before. It creates already creates a flow with the client where they feel that they know you already. And in doing that, it's a lot easier to sell. And so it's one of those things where if you're really successful at what you do anyway, it just makes you more successful. So,
I mean, that's great. I mean, I feel like I would be an idiot if I didn't try to at least work on my first newsletter in the next couple of days. So it's my homework assignment, which I didn't think I was going to have a homework because I don't want more work, but I think I have to do that because I feel like my business is important to me, and I think there's and even if it doesn't, just the idea of the branding again, of it's out there, people are going to look, they're going to see it. It's going to be like, okay, I just want people to know that I dot I's, I cross T's, and I'm professional. So I feel naked without having any newsletter. So I promise you, you're the LinkedIn guy. I'm going to promise I'm going to do my newsletter. So I'll call you if I have any problems with that. So you answered my second question because my second question was going to be what's the best way to stand out with LinkedIn? But I think it's the newsletter.
The newsletter is part of it. The other part of it is you want to make sure that your profile is actually branded to what you're doing. And what I mean by that is there's the LinkedIn banner at the top, right? A lot of people just leave it blank because they go, oh, I don't know what to do with it. The way that I explain it is first things first. When you land on a LinkedIn page, you look at somebody else's LinkedIn page, that banner is the first thing they're going to see. And so you want to make sure that banner has things like your logo, your name, your phone number, your email address. It doesn't have to be anything, but like if you go to look at mine, mine has a picture of my book and it says, by the way, subscribe to my newsletter. Well, all that stuff is just free advertising. And so that's the first part I tell people. It's like, make sure that you have something in your banner. The second piece I tell people is your LinkedIn profile should very well follow this pattern, which is it should be what's called a forward-facing profile. And what I mean by a forward-facing profile is when you read your LinkedIn profile and it says, my job is realtor at company, you want to basically tell people more than just I'm a realtor at this company. You want to tell people, here's why I'm different, and not use necessarily your job title of saying, well, I'm realtor at Remax. You might want to say I'm a specialist in this part of town doing these kind of things. And the more specific you get, the more likely somebody is to do it. Well, then when it goes down to your job description, and most people would say, well, I buy and sell homes, I do this, I do that. That's when, instead of doing that, you can literally write down and say, this is what I do for my buyers that's different than everybody else. This is what I do for my sellers that's different than everybody else. Maybe you might pay for something that most people don't expect, or maybe you have something, expertise that they don't know about, or whatever it is. But the point is, when you look at your LinkedIn profile, you want somebody to look at that and say, this is what Daniel can do for me, not what Daniel has done in his past. Because the truth is, nobody really cares what we've done in our past. What they care about is, how can we help you in the current present. And so one of the ways that I talk about it is, nobody buys pain. Everybody buys painkillers. And so explain in your profile, how do you help their pain to get through whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're a real estate agent or a mortgage person or an appraiser, it doesn't matter what you do. But if your profile is talking solely about you and saying, I went to this job, and this job, that doesn't help anybody. But if you put on this job and you say, I'm a buyer's agent, and these are the things that I've done, I do for buyer's agents. And then you put down another one that says, I'm a seller's agent, and this is what I do for my sellers. Now you're giving somebody a comprehensive reason to call you, because you're telling them, this is what I do, this is how I do it, this is why I do it, and this is how I help you. And once you do that, now all of a sudden your LinkedIn profile goes from being, again, that resume that it started as, it's now your living, breathing digital reputation online that is a 24/7 advertisement for you, but it tells your clients, this is how I can help you. Because at the end of the day, that's what they're looking for. And if you can articulate that, it makes it easier for them to say, you know what, I'm going to pick up my phone and I'm going to call Daniel and I'm going to say, I want to work with you. And there's no back and forth. There's no, I have to sell you on this or I have to sell you that. They're calling you because they already made a decision. Your job is just simply to say, okay, how can I help you?
Exactly. No, I mean I think that's you know, again, 8 years in real estate, so there's a lot of people with more tenure in real estate. But I also, before real estate, had my 20 years of sales and marketing. So it's, how do you deal with this, and how do you deal with people, and how do you connect people, and how do you know give people a reason to want to work with you, not a reason that they don't want to work with you.
Correct.
And just be open and honest, and all that. Uh, so that's kind of how I'm doing it, like, trying to do it that way. And really, like you said, not everyone's doing a podcast, and I don't need to be, 50, 100,000 would be nice, but 100,000 people, paying attention to the podcast. That's not really what this is about. This is really just trying to get some communication out there, meeting great people. Again, it's an avenue for me to connect with people, where, like, in essence, this is like therapy session, because you've now just you kicked me in my butt and said I can even be better for not that hard, right?
Right.
For free, and I didn't know that, because again, that's the whole point of educating, right? You don't know what you don't know, and now I
Right.
know something that I didn't know before. So every day we should learn something, and so part of it, is me getting people in every week, talking to people, uh, increasing my connections, right? Because now we're going to connect on LinkedIn and Instagram and what have you, and then I can also now drive people, other people that are in real estate, other people that are in other businesses, to try to improve the LinkedIn profile, to how to stand out from other people, and maybe to try to, to build a business that way. So you must, how many real estate, do you mostly speak to agents, or it's really, it's broad who you speak to?
Mostly it's agents, but in all honesty, I've been teaching LinkedIn classes for about 10 years. Probably my most unique group that I ever spoke to was a group of about 500 voiceover artists. And so those are the people that do voices for video games, commercials, cartoons, that kind of thing. And that was largely, they had approached me and said, we want, how can we help? How can we do this? And I said, well, with 100 million people in the United States on LinkedIn, chances are the guys that hire you or the women that hire you are online. And they said, well, what do you mean? So I sat down and I explained, and I started showing to him, and I said, look, if you guys have the same thing as everybody else, which is you have a product you want to sell. In order to sell it, you have to be in front of the people that are buying your product. And I said, in this case, your product is your voice. And they kind of went, oh, okay. And I said, so who would you be interested in talking to? And they said, oh, we want to talk to casting directors. We want to talk to advertising talent agents, people like that. And so I built this whole class based on how they could connect with voiceover people or casting agents or whatever. And the funny thing was, we had about 500 people on a Zoom call. Then we did another 3 week class where it was an hour a week for 3 weeks. And we had something like 100 and some people on there. And here we are almost 10 years later, and those people are still in contact with me. Every few months, I talk to a few of them. And they say, oh, yeah, by the way, what you taught us 10 years ago still works because the premise of LinkedIn has kind of evolved. Before we were ahead of the curve. Now we're kind of like in the middle of the curve. People are starting to understand that LinkedIn is actually a business model that you can use. But yeah, like I said, real estate agents, mortgage brokers, title reps, those people are fun for me because I came out of the mortgage business and I've been a real estate agent. And so I looked at this and said, there is a need for people to be able to have more business come into them and to build their business. And so I really help people look at their LinkedIn critically and say, how can we fix this? How can we make this a lead magnet and a lead generation machine so that it's something that you can literally turn on? You don't have to think too much about it because you just say, you know what, if I dedicate a half an hour a week to doing this, I will actually get response and I will get more business. And so it's real, but it's really for anybody who wants to build their business. LinkedIn is a way to do it in this modern digital age because we're getting away from, people are not working in offices as much as they used to. We're kind of becoming more siloed, but this robust community still exists on digital space. And now the question has become, how do you tap it? Well, how you tap it is you basically control you control your own message. And your message is, here I am on LinkedIn. This is what I do. How can I help? And then the classic example of this is you're sitting at your office in New York. I'm sitting in my office here in Colorado, and yet we're able to have a conversation. We're able to talk about this, and that's really kind of powerful, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So with all the real estate people and the different, what are you seeing, 2024 ending, 2025 starting? What do you see as trends in our market, trends in education or things that people need to be doing in our business?
So the biggest thing I've seen is simply put, we've come out of a couple of really hard years. But as I've preached before at different levels, at different jobs I've had, I tell people this: at the end of the day, your money, your mailing list is your life. That is what you do. And had somebody told me that 30 years ago, my mailing list would have been so much bigger than it is currently. But I tell people, especially kids starting out, I tell them, look, if you do this right, your mailing list will feed you for the rest of your life. And you need to protect that like gold. That is the one thing that you can take from job to job to job to job. That is the one thing that will follow you throughout your whole life is the people that you know. And this is a great way to kind of aggregate all those people into one place and say, you know what? Whenever I meet somebody, I want to connect to them on LinkedIn because that way you keep the conversation going. And that's why I say when you make a connection on LinkedIn, the connection is just the first step. It's not the end. Because the more active you are, the more times people will see you, the more you stay top of mind. And so if you stay top of mind and then somebody says, I need this, and that's what you sell, you're going to be the person that's going to stay on top of their mind. You're the person they're going to call. And too often than not, we don't do enough of that because we wind up struggling. And the truth is, you don't have to struggle. It doesn't have to be that way. You can use the technology you have now to be way more connected than when I started the business at least 30 years ago.
Again, I'm this is like a self-reflection. I am better at see Facebook also throws people in my face, right? Like, oh, you should be free. Well, obviously they're going through my email because they names it or they're hearing it, right? Because how else are they pulling this person up that I just started, being on the phone with or emailing? So LinkedIn does it a little bit, but not as much. but I generally try to go get Facebook and Instagram people of my clients. I don't really go back and try to do the LinkedIn, and I should,
Mhm.
because and if that house goes on, LinkedIn, then they're going to say, "Oh, thank you so much for helping me." Then their friends are going to do it. And LinkedIn is good because it's more business related in a sense. Um, not, and again, I'm less salesy. I'm more like, oh, this is just what's being done. But so that is probably something that people should probably do, is that and right now I'm dealing with a couple of clients that high level bankers and whatever, foolish for me for not connecting someone that's at Morgan Stanley, and Goldman, because I'm helping them and they might not be so, chatterboxy like me. But yet people will see, oh, that client, oh, he just bought a house or whatever. Oh, I'm looking for a house, or I'm trying to buy an investment, right? So, but I definitely have gotten some play for my social media where people that I went to grade school with, and actually I'm an Eagle Scout, and want somebody from my Boy Scout troop who's an Eagle Scout. He's a doctor in the city, and he's seeing what I'm doing on Instagram and Facebook. He's like, you know what? We're looking for a weekend house. So,
There you go.
right. We want you to work, because we know you, so let's do it. And so that's how, so it's like, it's amazing all the it's amazing, how connections are, and how you're right. If you just use your data, well, your database will grow, but if you use who you potentially know in a way that can motivate people, you have a good chance of being able to help other people, and helping other people. That's really what it's about. But then you can get more people, right?
Exactly. And the truth is, and I preach this in my class all the time, if you have a healthy business, 50% of your business should be coming from people you already know. 25% should be coming from new clients, and 25% should be kind of out there building business. And so if you think about it and you say, okay, well, if I have a 5,000 name database and let's say 10% are going to buy a house in the next 12 months, that's 500 people. And so the question becomes, if you knew that 500 people were going to buy a house in the next 12 months, and all you had to do was just be present for that, right? Just write something weekly, there might be a lot more motivation to you to do that, because even if you picked up a quarter of those, right? So now you're talking about 125 out of 500. So you're talking about 25%. And then you can start having them from there, but you realize that even if a very small percentage of those people say, you know what, I read your stuff and I thought about you and I called you, there's a tremendous amount of business sitting on the table that is just sitting there. And all you have to do is just say, you know what? I'm still here, guys. I'm still here.
Well, you said 10%. I would argue that that's too high, but 1%. That's
Even 1%, you're talking
50
about.
people, right? You wouldn't be. So if I do 65 deals a year, 50 more people. I mean, so it doesn't need to be. So if it's 1%, right? And then 1% is 50, and then you get a few of those, right? So you only incrementally need to grow, right? So
Right.
so it doesn't even need to be with those numbers, right? But but what's interesting is people always talk about scaling.
Mhm.
I'm I'm a little different as a broker and owner, and I should probably put this in my newsletter. Um, but like I'm not into scaling, right? And I'm not into I'm a broker. I'm not into scaling to 100 agents. Because then you get bigger and you have bigger problems, and I don't need to do that. I rather be smaller, nimbler, with the right
Sure.
people, right? That's much more important to me, because I don't need to, you don't need to be the king of everything. You
Right.
can have your little niche, and be more selective, and in doing things that way. So I'm anti scaling at some point. And also, I'm not so much into I think scale and budgeting. So it's
Mhm.
funny. So like with the new year coming, people are always like, what's your plan? How much you gonna do? You're gonna do 25% more than last year, whatever. And I'm like, you know, it's hard to know who's going to be selling. So there are some people obviously who are planning to sell their house, but there are other things that happen in life. You get transferred, somebody dies, new people come in. So and just because I did 65 deals last year doesn't mean I can grow the business 10%. Right.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess you could say, well, if that's your goal to do 75%, then you might need to do new things to try to attract new people. So, yes, that's kind of true. I rather be more nimble and not have huge expenses where my expenses are more flexible, right? Than they are fixed, right? So variable expenses are much better because if the business is there, then you can, keep doing the podcast or whatever. But like rather having brick and mortar, that's much longer term or things that you're locked in at, right? So, so that's allowed me to at least be flexible and I mean I every year I tell my wife, okay, that year is done. That was an insane year. I can't do better next year. Just prepare. I'm not doing better next year. And so, and then you're like, oh, I did. And then
Oops.
she's, oops. So, so it's not like I don't work hard to try to get more, but me planning that I'm gonna get that doesn't get it for me. In essence, it's really so what my view is I'd rather keep making connections and keep making the connections and assisting people. And for me, that's a little bit my secret sauce of making it keep going forward with more and bigger, and then sharing, right? Because as a broker, I get a lot of leads. And so a lot of times my job is also how can I help funnel them to people that are the proper people on my team that can manage that. So that's where I can delegate a little bit and direct it. But it's not, just because it's on a plan doesn't mean it happens. And it doesn't mean you're lazy, but it means that, focus on the right things. And so that's kind of what I've tried to do.
Hmm. Yeah, and truthfully, LinkedIn is just another way to add another layer. That's really that's what I tell people. It's all it is. It's another way to drive business. It's another way to stay top of mind. It doesn't have to take you a lot of time, and you can scale it up or down to whatever it is you want to do. But at the end of the day, if you have the availability to talk to as many people as you talk to them because it's going to create you more business, and it's not business that you have to go out and introduce yourself and become somebody new. You just go out and say, you know what? I mean, quite honestly, with a database the size of yours, you could probably work off that database for years to come, and you wouldn't really have to do much more than just talking to people and kind of doing that whole thing where you're just simply saying, "Here I am. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And if I can help you, I can." But again, the marketing thing is that it takes 15 days for somebody to forget who you are and what you do. And so if you put something out every 5 to 10 days and just say, hey, I'm doing this, this is what I'm doing, LinkedIn makes sure that other people see it.
So as we're talking, I'm thinking, which is I guess is a good thing. And I'm thinking like this is really like the modern day BNI meetings that are breakfast meetings in the Chamber of Commerce's or Knights of Columbus,
Yep.
Postmaster stuff, because think about the time that you would take to drive there, get there. You do have to pay to get in, all that stuff. It seems like LinkedIn is a much easier way to reach many, many more people with a
Yes.
message that you can focus, right? You can prepare your message, spend less time doing it with a bigger reach. It just seems like that it makes you much more efficient.
Yes, absolutely.
So now another reason why I don't have to do another BNI group, but yet this seems like it's silly and foolish not to spend a little bit more time on my laptop working on LinkedIn, which is really just trying to communicate to others what I'm about. So
Yes,
right. So when people see they're like, oh, the guy's okay or whatever. And it seems like that's something that I think people could learn from and would be helpful. So
absolutely.
wow, that is a lot of nuggets. Jarred, I definitely, I'm gonna allow you to still be calling the LinkedIn guy because I think what you just said is so valuable. Easy things that others can actually work on. I can do it myself. Other people can do it. LinkedIn, like you said, 20 plus years. It seems like it's going away. It's not going away.
Right.
And so I thank you for your time.
Thank you for
Again,
having me.
show us your book, The LinkedIn Real Estate Agent. So we
That is
want to,
this. It's available on Amazon. They can also find it. I have actually a free preview chapter if they're interested. You can go on my website, which is classeswithjarred.com. And my name is spelled kind of down in the bottom corner. It's Jarred. So Jarred, it's classeswithjarred.com. And then there's a button that says get a free chapter of the LinkedIn book. So if you want to preview it, see what it's about, you can do that. And then it's available on Amazon as well. So,
we're gonna, after I sign off, stay on the line because I want to ask you a couple questions about your book as well.
okay.
But thank you very much. You're a wealth of information, and hopefully, it's our job now to, when this is published, that we both use social media and get
Yep.
this out to our connections so that people can at least see that. And I definitely feel that when people listen in, that they're gonna think that, I check out the book, check out your new. Before the call, I subscribed to your newsletter, so I'm going to be able to see
Excellent.
what a pro's pro is like. You've been doing a great job with that. I appreciate
Thank you.
the time that you've come on. Hopefully, I learned. So hopefully you learned something too, and that you can use it, because it should be a two-way street of shared of gain of thought knowledge. So again, thank you very much thanks everyone for another edition of The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I'm Daniel Berger, and until next time we speak. Thanks for joining me on The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York Realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.